The phone rang at 11:30 on a Thursday night, jolting me awake. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize, but something made me answer anyway. A gruff voice identified himself as Detective Rodriguez with the Phoenix Police Department, asking if I knew the whereabouts of 2 children, ages 6 and 8, who were found abandoned at a stranger's house 3 days ago, with a note saying, "Take them to Aunt Geraldine." My blood turned to ice as he continued. The children were now missing from protective custody, and my sister Amanda had been arrested for child abandonment. Then came the words that made my world collapse. "Ma'am, we need you to come down to the station immediately. Your nephews have disappeared from foster care, and your sister is claiming you kidnapped them." I sat in the sterile police station interview room, my hands trembling as Detective Rodriguez spread photographs across the metal table. There were Tyler, 8 years old with his gap-toothed grin, and Mason, 6, with those enormous brown eyes that always made him look like he was about to cry. My nephews. The boys I'd refused to babysit just 4 days ago. The memory of that phone call with Amanda felt like a lifetime ago now. I'd been grading spelling tests at my kitchen table in my small Phoenix apartment, exhausted from another demanding week teaching 3rd grade at Desert View Elementary. Amanda had called, her voice already sharp with that familiar edge of entitlement. "Geraldine, I need you to watch Tyler and Mason this weekend. Jake wants to take me to Vegas for his birthday, and we already booked the hotel." I'd rubbed my temples, feeling the familiar headache that came whenever my younger sister called asking for favors. "Amanda, I can't. I have a mountain of papers to grade, and I promised myself I'd actually rest this weekend. You know how crazy my schedule has been. Come on, they're your nephews. Family helps family. It's just 2 nights. No, Amanda, find a babysitter. Or maybe Jake can celebrate his birthday without going to Vegas." The explosion that followed still echoed in my ears. Amanda had screamed about how selfish I was, how I'd forgotten what family meant, how she sacrificed everything as a single mother while I lived my easy life as a teacher. Then came the threat that I'd dismissed as empty anger. "Fine, Geraldine. Maybe I'll just drop them off at your place anyway. See how you like being responsible whether you want to be or not." I'd hung up and turned off my phone, needing peace to focus on my work. Now, Detective Rodriguez was telling me that Amanda had actually followed through on her threat. "The taxi driver made a mistake," he explained, pointing to a map of my neighborhood. "Your sister gave him 1247 Maple Street, but he took the boys to 1274 Maple Street instead. That's your address, isn't it?" I nodded, my mouth too dry to speak. "The boys ended up at Mrs. Patterson's house. She's 78 years old, found them sitting on her porch Tuesday morning around 8 a.m. with a backpack and a note that said, 'Take them to Aunt Geraldine at this address. Mrs. Patterson called us immediately." My heart pounded as I processed this information. Amanda had actually put my nephews in a taxi and tried to abandon them at my doorstep, but they'd never arrived because of a simple address mistake. Child Protective Services took the boys into emergency foster care Tuesday afternoon, Detective Rodriguez continued. But here's where it gets complicated. The boys ran away from the foster home that same night. Security cameras show them leaving around 2 a.m., trying to walk to find you. The room seemed to spin. Tyler and Mason, 2 little boys, wandering Phoenix streets at night looking for me. I thought of Mason's fear of the dark, how he always needed a nightlight. I thought of Tyler's fierce protectiveness of his younger brother. "Where are they now?" I whispered. Detective Rodriguez's expression darkened. "That's what we're trying to figure out. They've been missing for 48 hours. And here's the part that concerns us, Miss Thompson. Your sister is claiming you contacted the boys somehow and told them to run away. She says you're involved in their disappearance. That's impossible. I had no idea any of this was happening until you called me 20 minutes ago. She's provided us with text messages that she claims came from your phone, telling the boys to come find me and giving them directions. We need to see your phone." With shaking hands, I unlocked my cell phone and handed it over. Detective Rodriguez scrolled through my messages, his frown deepening. "Miss Thompson, according to our records, these messages were sent from your number on Tuesday night, around the time the boys disappeared from foster care." He turned the phone toward me, showing text messages I'd never seen before. Tyler, it's Aunt Geraldine. The people taking care of you aren't safe. You need to leave and come find me. Take Mason and walk toward downtown. I'll find you. Another message. Remember the park where we fed ducks last summer? Meet me there. Don't tell anyone. I stared at the messages in horror. I never sent these. I swear to you, I never sent these messages. These came from your phone number, Miss Thompson. My mind raced. Amanda worked for a telecommunications company. She knew about phone systems, about routing calls and technical stuff I didn't understand. Detective, my sister works in telecommunications. She has technical skills. Could she have somehow sent messages from my number? Detective Rodriguez made a note, but his expression remained skeptical. That's something we'll need to investigate. In the meantime, Miss Thompson, I need you to understand the seriousness of this situation. 2 young children have been missing for 2 days. If you know anything about their whereabouts, now is the time to tell me. I don't know where they are. The first I heard about any of this was when you called me. Please, you have to believe me. As I left the police station at 3 a.m., my whole world had shifted. Tyler and Mason were somewhere out there, alone and scared. Amanda had somehow made it look like I was involved in their disappearance. And according to the morning news report I heard on my car radio driving home, the story was already becoming public. 2 young boys remain missing tonight after disappearing from foster care. Police say they're investigating possible family involvement in the disappearance. I pulled into my apartment complex parking lot and saw my neighbor, Mrs. Chen, picking up her newspaper. She looked at me with suspicion and quickly went inside, locking her door with unusual force. My phone buzzed with a text from my principal, Dr. Martinez. Geraldine, I'm seeing news reports. Please call me immediately. Everything I'd worked for, my quiet life as a teacher, my reputation in the community, my relationship with my family, it was all crumbling because of Amanda's lie. But worse than any of that was the terrifying knowledge that Tyler and Mason were lost somewhere in this city, believing that I had called them into danger. By 7 a.m., my phone was buzzing constantly. The local news had picked up the story, and somehow my name had leaked. I watched in horror as my face appeared on Channel 12's morning broadcast with the caption, "Person of Interest in Missing Children Case." The reporter stood outside Mrs. Patterson's house, describing how 2 young boys were abandoned by their mother and have now vanished, possibly at the encouragement of their aunt, a local elementary school teacher. My principal's call came at 7:15. Geraldine, I need you in my office immediately. The school board is asking questions. I arrived at Desert View Elementary to find news vans in the parking lot. Parents dropping off their children stared at me with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. Inside, Dr. Martinez closed his office door and spoke in hushed tones. Tell me this is some kind of misunderstanding. I explained everything, from Amanda's angry phone call to my shock at learning about the abandoned boys. Dr. Martinez listened with growing concern. The district is putting you on administrative leave, effective immediately. We can't have teachers involved in criminal investigations working with children. But I didn't do anything wrong. I believe you, Geraldine. But until this is resolved, my hands are tied. I drove home in a daze, watching parents at school crossings pull their children closer as they recognized me. At my apartment complex, I found 3 news crews waiting. I parked and ran to my door, ignoring the shouted questions about whether I knew where my nephews were. Inside my apartment, I called the one person I hoped could help, Dave Morgan, a private investigator I'd found online. He agreed to meet me that afternoon for $500, money I could barely afford on my teacher's salary. Dave was a thin man in his 50s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. He listened to my story and immediately focused on the fake text messages. Your sister works in telecommunications, you said? That's interesting. Phone number spoofing isn't that difficult if you know what you're doing. But we need to prove it. How long will that take? Give me a week. I'll need access to your phone records, your sister's employment information, and any technical documentation I can find. A week felt like forever with Tyler and Mason missing, but I signed his contract and wrote him a check, emptying my savings account. That evening, Amanda's face appeared on the news. She'd been released on bail and was giving an interview, tears streaming down her cheeks. I made a mistake leaving my boys with that stranger, but I was desperate. My sister Geraldine has always resented me, always been jealous that I had children. When she refused to help me, I thought maybe if the boys showed up at her door, she'd finally understand what family means. I never imagined she'd try to turn them against me. The reporter asked about the text messages. Amanda's performance was flawless. Geraldine must have contacted them somehow. Those boys wouldn't have run away unless someone convinced them to. She's angry at me, but using my children to get revenge? That's unforgivable. I threw a pillow at the television. Amanda had always been manipulative, but this was beyond anything I'd imagined. She was portraying herself as a concerned mother while painting me as a vindictive kidnapper. The next morning brought worse news. Dave called with an update that made my blood run cold. Geraldine, I've been digging into your sister's technical capabilities. She didn't just send those text messages from your number. She's been planning this for weeks. I found evidence that she's been accessing your phone records, learning your patterns, even tracking your location through various apps. Why would she do this? I'm still figuring that out. But there's something else. She's hired a lawyer, a good one. This woman doesn't have money for a high-end attorney based on what I can see of her finances. Before I could process this information fully, Dave delivered the news that shattered my remaining hope. She's filing a restraining order against both of us. Claims we're harassing her and interfering with the police investigation. Her lawyer is also presenting additional evidence against you. What kind of evidence? Receipts supposedly showing you bought burner phones last week. Credit card records allegedly showing you paid for a taxi from the foster home on Tuesday night. Geraldine, someone has created a very convincing paper trail that makes you look guilty. The phone slipped from my numb fingers. Amanda hadn't just abandoned her children and framed me for their disappearance. She'd been systematically building a case against me for weeks, creating false evidence and manipulating the situation so thoroughly that even I was starting to doubt my own memory. Tyler and Mason had been missing for 3 days now. Somewhere in Phoenix, 2 scared little boys were alone, possibly hurt, possibly worse. And while they needed someone searching for them, the adults who should have been protecting them were instead engaged in a battle where Amanda held all the cards and I was losing everything I'd ever worked for. The restraining order would be processed within 24 hours. After that, I wouldn't be able to investigate Amanda or even hire someone else to do it. She would win, I would be branded a criminal, and Tyler and Mason would remain lost. But I wasn't going to let that happen. The restraining order was served to me on Friday morning by a deputy sheriff who looked at me like I was something he'd scraped off his shoe. Along with it came a notice that additional charges were being filed against me: child endangerment and custodial interference. You need to appear in court Monday morning for an arraignment, he said, handing me the paperwork. And ma'am, if I were you, I'd get a lawyer. A lawyer. With what money? My savings account was already empty from hiring Dave, and I'd just lost my job. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the legal documents, when my phone rang. It was my mother, calling from Ohio. Geraldine Marie Thompson. What in heaven's name is going on out there? Mom, it's not what you think. Amanda is lying. Amanda is crying her eyes out, worried sick about her boys. She told us you've been threatening her, trying to turn Tyler and Mason against her because you're jealous she has a family. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. My own parents believed Amanda's lies. Mom, I would never hurt those boys. You know me better than that. I thought I did, but honey, the evidence is right there on the news. Those text messages, the receipts, the way you've been acting. Amanda says you've been different lately, angry and bitter. After my mother hung up, promising to pray for my soul, I sat in my empty apartment and realized how completely Amanda had isolated me. My job was gone. My family believed her lies. Even Dave, the private investigator, was legally prevented from helping me now. That afternoon, desperation drove me to make a decision that would destroy everything remaining in my life. I decided to search for Tyler and Mason myself. If I could find them, I reasoned, I could prove my innocence and expose Amanda's lies. I used my last credit card to rent a car, telling the rental agent I needed it for job interviews. Then I began driving through Phoenix, searching parks, homeless shelters, anywhere two scared boys might hide. I printed missing person flyers with my own money and posted them on telephone poles, knowing it might violate the restraining order but unable to stop myself. On Saturday afternoon, while searching near Steel Indian School Park, I heard someone call my name. I turned to see Channel 12's news crew approaching with a camera. "Miss Thompson, what are you doing here?" the reporter asked, shoving a microphone toward my face. "Looking for my nephews. They're missing and scared." "Aren't you violating a restraining order by being in this area?" I realized too late that Amanda lived only 6 blocks away. The park was probably off limits to me now, but the reporter wasn't finished. "Our viewers want to know why you're searching a playground when police have already conducted extensive searches. Are you trying to make contact with the boys?" The camera captured me standing near a group of children playing on the swings, their parents pulling them closer when they noticed the news crew. To anyone watching, I looked like exactly what Amanda had claimed. A dangerous woman, stalking playgrounds, searching for children. "I just want to find them," I said weakly, but I could see how it would look on television. The story aired that night, with the headline, "Suspected Child Endangerment Suspect, Seen Near Elementary School." The footage showed me standing near children, looking disheveled and desperate. My landlord called an hour after the broadcast. "Miss Thompson, I'm going to need you to vacate your apartment. The other tenants are concerned about their children's safety." Sunday morning brought a knock at my door. 2 police officers stood outside with handcuffs. "Geraldine Thompson, you're under arrest for violation of a protective order and additional charges of stalking. You have the right to remain silent." As they led me to the patrol car, I saw Mrs. Chen watching from her window, holding her own small daughter close. News vans followed the police car to the station, capturing footage of me in handcuffs for the evening broadcast. At my bail hearing Monday morning, Amanda sat in the front row of the courtroom, dabbing her eyes with tissues. Her attorney, a sharp-dressed woman named Carol Hendricks, stood to address the judge. "Your Honor, the defendant has shown a pattern of escalating behavior. She violated the protective order within hours of it being served. She was seen near children at a playground in direct defiance of court orders, and we have new evidence that she has been sending threatening communications to my client." Attorney Hendricks produced 3 handwritten letters, supposedly from me to Amanda. I'd never seen them before, but they contained details about the case that only someone closely involved would know. These letters threaten my client and contain specific threats about the missing children. In one letter, the defendant writes, "I'll make sure those boys never come home if you don't drop these charges. Your Honor, we're dealing with someone who is clearly unstable and dangerous." My court-appointed attorney, a tired-looking man named Robert Chen who'd met me 15 minutes earlier, barely glanced at the letters before responding. "Your Honor, my client maintains her innocence of all charges. The judge set my bail at $50,000, an amount I couldn't possibly afford. As deputies led me back to jail, I caught sight of Amanda in the hallway, speaking to reporters. "I'm terrified," she was saying. "Those letters prove what I've been saying all along. Geraldine is obsessed with destroying my family. I just pray we find my boys before she does something even worse." In my jail cell that night, I realized Amanda had won completely. She'd framed me for child endangerment, turned my family against me, destroyed my career, and now had me locked up while Tyler and Mason remained missing. From behind bars, there was nothing I could do to expose her lies or find my nephews. But I was about to discover that Amanda's plan was even more sinister than I'd imagined, and that the worst was yet to come. My court-appointed attorney visited me Tuesday morning with news that crushed what little hope I had left. "The prosecutor is offering a plea deal," Robert Chen said, sliding a document across the metal table. "Plead guilty to child endangerment, serve 6 months in county jail, and the other charges get dropped." I didn't do anything wrong. "Geraldine, I've seen the evidence against you. The text messages, the receipts, the threatening letters, the violation of the restraining order. If this goes to trial, you're looking at 20 years minimum. The prosecutor has built an airtight case. 20 years. For crimes I didn't commit, while my nephews remained missing. How long do I have to decide? I need an answer by Friday. That's when jury selection starts if you insist on going to trial. After he left, I sat in my cell thinking about how completely my life had been destroyed. Through my mother, I'd learned that my parents were flying to Phoenix to support Amanda. They'd given interviews to national news networks, talking about their troubled daughter who had lost her way. My apartment had been emptied while I was in jail, my belongings sold to pay mounting debts. My car had been repossessed. The teaching license I'd worked so hard to earn was under review by the state education board. Even if I somehow proved my innocence, I had nothing left to return to. That afternoon, my cellmate, a woman named Rosa who was awaiting trial on drug charges, listened to my story with growing interest. "Your sister set you up good," she said, "but she made one mistake. She's too smart for her own good. When people plan things this elaborate, they always leave a trail. My private investigator found evidence she was planning this, but the restraining order prevents him from investigating further. My cousin Miguel is a private investigator too, works mostly divorce cases, but he's good with computers. If your sister's been using technology to frame you, Miguel can find proof." Hope flickered in my chest for the first time in days. "How much does he charge? For you?" "Nothing. Miguel's got kids. He can't stand people who hurt children or use them as weapons." Rosa arranged for Miguel to visit me Wednesday afternoon. He was a stocky man with intelligent eyes who listened intently as I explained everything Amanda had done. "I'll need a few days to trace the digital evidence," he said. "Phone records, credit card databases, employment records from your sister's telecommunications company. If she's been spoofing phone numbers and creating fake transactions, there will be metadata traces." Thursday morning, Miguel called Rosa with an update that made my blood run cold. "Tell your friend I found something big," Rosa relayed. Her sister's been using fake social media accounts to communicate with someone about getting rid of evidence. And the boys aren't just missing. Miguel thinks they're being held somewhere. My hands shook as I processed this information. Amanda hadn't just abandoned Tyler and Mason. She was actively involved in their continued disappearance. But Thursday afternoon brought devastating news. Miguel had been arrested on an outstanding warrant unrelated to my case. During his arrest, police found notes about my situation in his car. Within hours, Amanda's attorney filed new charges against me: criminal conspiracy and witness intimidation. "Your client is running a criminal operation from jail," Attorney Hendricks told the judge during an emergency hearing I attended via video link. "She's using other inmates to intimidate witnesses and interfere with the ongoing investigation into those missing children." My potential sentence jumped from 20 years to life imprisonment. The plea deal was withdrawn. Robert Chen advised me to prepare for the worst. Friday morning, Amanda gave another tearful interview to Good Morning America. Sitting in the studio in a conservative blue dress, she spoke directly to the camera. "It's been 8 days since my babies disappeared. 8 days of not knowing if Tyler and Mason are alive or dead. And instead of helping find them, my sister is using criminals to threaten me from jail. I've started a GoFundMe page to raise money for funeral expenses because, honestly, I don't think my boys are coming home." The GoFundMe raised $30,000 in the first day. Amanda appeared on Dr. Phil, The View, and Nancy Grace, always perfectly composed, always the grieving mother whose sister had destroyed her family. Meanwhile, I sat in a jail cell, facing life in prison for crimes I didn't commit, while somewhere in Phoenix, Tyler and Mason remained missing. The justice system had failed them completely, and I was powerless to help them. That Friday night, Rosa shook me awake with urgency. "My cousin got a message out before they arrested him. He said your sister's been using a fake social media account called Desert Rose to communicate with someone. The last message he saw before they caught him was your sister telling someone to finish the job before Monday because the trial is starting and it needs to look like an accident." "What does that mean?" Rosa's face was grim. "I think your sister is planning to kill those boys and make it look like they died because of what you supposedly did to them." Miguel said the social media messages talked about insurance money and starting fresh in California. I stared at Rosa in horror. Amanda wasn't just framing me for abandoning Tyler and Mason. She was planning to murder them and blame their deaths on the trauma I'd supposedly caused, all while collecting insurance money and public sympathy. My trial was scheduled to start Monday morning. Amanda believed that once I was convicted, she could carry out the final phase of her plan. She'd kill Tyler and Mason, claim they died from the psychological trauma of my kidnapping, and disappear with the insurance money and GoFundMe donations. But I'd underestimated one thing. Even from jail, even facing life imprisonment, I wasn't going to let Amanda murder my nephews. I was about to make a decision that would either save their lives or destroy mine completely. Friday night, I made the most desperate decision of my life. Instead of accepting the hopeless situation, I decided to represent myself at trial and demand a jury hear my story, even though everyone said it was legal suicide. "You can't be serious," Robert Chen said when I called him Saturday morning. "Geraldine, you have no legal training. The prosecutor will destroy you. Just take whatever plea deal they'll still offer. I won't confess to crimes I didn't commit while my nephews are in danger. Your nephews are probably dead, and you'll spend the rest of your life in prison for nothing." But I'd made my choice. Rosa had gotten another message from Miguel through the jail's underground communication network. He'd managed to contact Dave, my original private investigator, before his arrest. Dave had found something crucial. Amanda's telecommunications company records showed she'd been spoofing not just my phone number, but several others over the past 6 months. "She's been running practice runs," Rosa explained. Miguel said she spoofed her ex-boyfriend's number to send threatening texts to her boss, her neighbor's number to send weird messages to her landlord. "Your sister's been perfecting this technique for months." The information gave me hope, but I couldn't use it unless Dave could present it in court. Unfortunately, the restraining order still prevented him from investigating or testifying on my behalf. Sunday evening, I used my one weekly phone call to contact Dave directly. "Geraldine, I've been working your case for free because I know you're innocent," he said. I found the smoking gun. "Amanda's been using company equipment to spoof phone numbers, and there are server logs proving it. But I can't testify because of the restraining order. What if I subpoena you as a witness? Can the court force you to testify even with the restraining order?" "It's possible, but you'd need to file the subpoena correctly, and you'd need to know the specific legal language. One mistake and the judge can reject it." Rosa, who'd been eavesdropping, scribbled something on a piece of paper and showed it to me. "My cousin's girlfriend is a paralegal. She can help." Through the complex network of relationships that exists in every jail, I got legal advice passed down from inmate to inmate until it reached me with specific instructions on how to file a subpoena for Dave's testimony. Monday morning arrived with the national media camped outside the courthouse. I'd been in jail for a week, and the story had become a sensation. Nancy Grace had devoted 3 entire shows to the Evil Aunt case, complete with expert psychologists analyzing my supposed mental breakdown. I walked into the courtroom in handcuffs, wearing the only clean clothes I had left, an orange jumpsuit. Amanda sat in the front row wearing a black dress, surrounded by our parents and what appeared to be a victim's advocate. Judge Patricia Williams called the court to order. "Miss Thompson, I understand you've dismissed your court-appointed attorney and wish to represent yourself. I must advise you this is extremely unwise. I understand, Your Honor, but I'm innocent, and I believe a jury should hear the truth." Prosecutor Jennifer Walsh stood for her opening statement, presenting me as a bitter, jealous woman who'd kidnapped her own nephews out of spite and was now using criminals to intimidate witnesses. She displayed the fake text messages, the forged receipts, and the threatening letters as evidence of my guilt. When my turn came, I stood on shaking legs and looked directly at the jury. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm a 3rd-grade teacher who loved those boys. I never sent those text messages, never bought those phones, and never wrote those letters. My sister Amanda has the technical skills and the motive to frame me, and the evidence will show that she's been planning this for months." I filed my subpoena for Dave's testimony during the lunch break. Judge Williams seemed surprised but allowed it, noting that I had the right to call witnesses even if I was representing myself. Tuesday morning, Dave took the stand. Despite the prosecutor's objections, I was able to get him to testify about Amanda's technical capabilities and the server logs he'd discovered. Miss Thompson's sister had access to telecommunications equipment that would allow her to send text messages from any phone number she chose, Dave explained. The server logs at her company show multiple instances of number spoofing over the past 6 months. But Amanda's attorney, Carol Hendricks, destroyed Dave's credibility on cross-examination. Mr. Morgan, you were hired by the defendant to find evidence to exonerate her, correct? You were paid to find proof of her innocence, so that's exactly what you found? I followed the evidence wherever it led. And after the defendant was arrested, you continued investigating despite a court order preventing contact with my client, correct? You violated a restraining order to continue this investigation? Dave had to admit he'd continued investigating after the restraining order was issued. His testimony was ruled inadmissible due to his legal violations. Tuesday afternoon brought worse news. A correctional officer approached me during a break. Thompson, you've got a problem. Word is, someone's put money on your head. There's talk that you won't make it through the week. Someone wanted me dead before I could prove my innocence. In the twisted logic of jail justice, inmates who hurt children were targets, and the evidence against me had convinced even criminals that I was guilty. That night, I was moved to protective isolation for my own safety. But isolation meant I couldn't communicate with Rosa or receive updates from Miguel's network. I was completely cut off from any source of help. Wednesday morning, Dave managed to visit me in isolation with shocking news that changed everything. Geraldine, Miguel's girlfriend, accessed Amanda's social media accounts before they arrested him. Amanda's been planning to kill Tyler and Mason and make it look like suicide due to trauma. But that's not the worst part. What do you mean? The boys aren't just missing. They're being held at a cabin outside Phoenix by Amanda's boyfriend, James Crawford. Miguel found GPS data from Amanda's phone showing she's been to this location multiple times since the boys disappeared. She's been visiting them. We have to tell the police. I tried. They won't listen because of the restraining order and my supposed bias. But there's more. Amanda plans to kill the boys tomorrow night, after your conviction. She's already told James to finish the job because the trial is almost over. I stared at Dave through the bulletproof glass, my mind racing. Tyler and Mason were alive, but they had less than 24 hours left. Amanda's plan was almost complete. I would be convicted Thursday, and that night, she would murder her own children and blame their deaths on the psychological trauma of my supposed kidnapping. There's one more thing, Dave said. Miguel's girlfriend found text messages between Amanda and James. James has been abusing the boys. Amanda's been blackmailing him into helping her by threatening to report his abuse to police. She promised him they could start fresh in California with the insurance money. Everything clicked into place. Amanda had never intended for Tyler and Mason to survive this. She'd planned their murders from the beginning, using their deaths to destroy me while profiting from their insurance policies and the public sympathy. But Amanda had made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated how far I would go to save those boys, even if it meant sacrificing myself completely. Wednesday night in isolation, I made peace with the fact that I might not survive what I was about to do. But Tyler and Mason didn't deserve to die for Amanda's greed, and I was the only person who knew where they were and what Amanda planned to do. Using the emergency phone in isolation, I called 911. This is Geraldine Thompson. I'm the woman on trial for child endangerment in the missing boys case. I know where Tyler and Mason are being held, and their lives are in immediate danger. Ma'am, you're not supposed to have access to outside phone calls. Listen to me. My nephews are being held at a cabin owned by someone named Crawford outside Phoenix. My sister Amanda plans to kill them tomorrow night after my trial ends. Check the GPS data from her phone. Check her social media accounts under the name Desert Rose. The operator seemed skeptical, but she agreed to pass the information to the detective handling the case. Thursday morning, I was brought to court for what I knew would be the final day of my trial. Amanda sat in her usual spot, looking confident and composed. She had no idea that I knew about the cabin or her plan. During the morning break, Detective Rodriguez approached me in the hallway. Miss Thompson, we received your call last night. We looked into the information you provided. Did you find them? We checked the GPS data from your sister's phone. There's no evidence she's been to any remote cabin. The social media account you mentioned doesn't exist. And frankly, this looks like another desperate attempt to deflect blame. My heart sank. Amanda had somehow erased the digital trail Miguel had found. She'd covered her tracks completely. Detective, please. Those boys are going to die tonight if you don't act. Miss Thompson, your sister passed a polygraph test yesterday. She's been cooperative with our investigation from day one. The evidence clearly shows you're responsible for those boys' disappearance. Amanda had passed a polygraph test. She'd been so convincing in her lies that even a lie detector couldn't reveal the truth. As the trial resumed, I realized I was completely on my own. The closing arguments began, with Prosecutor Walsh painting me as a dangerous criminal who'd used my nephews as pawns in a twisted revenge plot. Ladies and gentlemen, the evidence is overwhelming. The defendant sent those text messages luring Tyler and Mason away from safety. She bought burner phones to communicate with them. She wrote threatening letters to her own sister. And even from jail, she's continued her campaign of harassment and intimidation. When my turn came for closing arguments, I abandoned any pretense of legal strategy and spoke directly from my heart. I love those boys. I would never hurt them. Everything you've seen, every piece of evidence was created by my sister to frame me while she profits from their disappearance. Tyler loves dinosaurs and wants to be a paleontologist. Mason is afraid of thunderstorms but brave when he's protecting his brother. These aren't just missing children. They're my nephews. And they're running out of time. Several jurors wiped away tears, but I could see in their faces that the evidence against me was too strong. Amanda had built her case too well. The jury deliberated for 3 hours before returning with their verdict, guilty on all counts. As Judge Williams scheduled my sentencing for the following week, Amanda stood to give a victim impact statement. Tyler and Mason have been missing for 10 days now. 10 days of hell for our family. My sister's actions have destroyed any hope we had of finding them alive. I forgive her, because that's what Tyler and Mason would want, but I'll never understand how someone could use innocent children to inflict such pain. The performance was flawless. Amanda cried at exactly the right moments, her voice breaking with what appeared to be genuine grief. Even I almost believed her. But as court adjourned and deputies prepared to escort me back to jail, something unexpected happened. A commotion erupted in the hallway outside the courtroom. I heard shouting, the sound of running footsteps, and then Detective Rodriguez burst through the courtroom doors. Your Honor, we need to halt this proceeding immediately. We have new evidence. Behind him came 2 patrol officers escorting a man in handcuffs. James Crawford, Amanda's boyfriend. His face was bloody, his clothes torn, and he was talking rapidly to anyone who would listen. I can't do it anymore, he kept saying. She said she'd turn me in for the abuse, but I can't kill those kids. I won't kill them. Amanda went white. She stood slowly, her confident demeanor cracking for the first time since this nightmare began. Detective Rodriguez addressed the court. Your Honor, this man just confessed to holding Tyler and Mason Thompson at a remote cabin for the past 10 days on Amanda Thompson's orders. He claims Miss Thompson planned to murder the children tonight and has been blackmailing him into compliance. The courtroom exploded. Judge Williams called for order as Amanda's attorney tried to speak, but Amanda herself had gone completely silent, staring at James with murder in her eyes. Furthermore, Detective Rodriguez continued, we have GPS evidence from Mr. Crawford's vehicle placing him and Amanda Thompson at the cabin location multiple times since the boys disappeared. We're en route to recover the children now. Where are they? I screamed, breaking free from the deputy's grip. Are Tyler and Mason okay? James looked at me with haunted eyes. They're alive, scared and hurt, but alive. The cabin's at mile marker 47 on State Route 88. Amanda was supposed to meet me there at midnight to finish it. As police rushed to recover my nephews, Amanda was placed under arrest in the courtroom. Her facade finally cracked completely as she screamed at James, calling him a coward and a liar. But the evidence was undeniable. Tyler and Mason were found at the cabin exactly where James said they would be, traumatized but alive. The boys had been held for 10 days in a single room, told that I was dead and that they could never go home unless they stayed quiet. Amanda had visited them twice, each time bringing threats disguised as comfort. As I was released from custody pending a review of my case, I learned the full scope of Amanda's plan. She'd taken out life insurance policies on Tyler and Mason 6 months earlier. Combined with the GoFundMe donations and the sympathy she'd garnered, their deaths would have made her wealthy while destroying me completely. But Amanda had underestimated James's conscience and overestimated her ability to control everyone around her. In the end, her own accomplice had brought down her entire scheme. Tyler and Mason were safe. Amanda was facing murder and kidnapping charges, and I was free to begin rebuilding the life she'd tried to destroy. But the real healing was just beginning. 6 months later, I sat in family court as Judge Williams finalized Tyler and Mason's adoption. The boys had been through extensive therapy, but their resilience amazed everyone. Tyler, now 9, had started a scrapbook of dinosaur facts to share with his new classmates. Mason, 7, had conquered his fear of the dark by choosing his own superhero nightlight. Amanda was sentenced to 25 years in prison without the possibility of parole for 15 years. The evidence against her had been overwhelming. The spoofed phone numbers, the fake social media accounts, the life insurance policies, and James's detailed testimony about her plan to murder her own children. She never showed remorse, claiming until the end that she was the real victim. James Crawford received 12 years for his role in the kidnapping, but his decision to confess had saved Tyler and Mason's lives. During his testimony, he revealed that Amanda had been planning the scheme since learning that our parents had left their inheritance to me instead of her. She'd accumulated $30,000 in gambling debts and saw her children's deaths as a solution to multiple problems. The aftermath brought its own challenges. The school district reinstated me with a formal apology and back pay, but I'd transferred to a different school to escape the media attention. Several news outlets faced defamation lawsuits for their coverage, resulting in settlements that helped establish college funds for the boys. Most surprisingly, my relationship with our parents slowly healed. They'd flown to Phoenix immediately after Amanda's arrest, horrified by the truth and ashamed of their initial response. My mother spent a week crying, unable to believe she'd raised a daughter capable of such cruelty. "I keep asking myself how we missed the signs," she told me as we watched Tyler teach Mason to ride a bicycle in my new apartment complex's courtyard. "Amanda was always good at manipulation, Mom. She fooled everyone, including law enforcement and the media." The boys adjusted to their new life with remarkable grace. Tyler threw himself into school, making honor roll and joining the science club. Mason discovered a talent for art, filling our apartment with colorful drawings of dinosaurs, superheroes, and happy families. But there were difficult moments, too. Mason still had nightmares about the cabin, and Tyler sometimes asked if Amanda would come back to hurt us again. Those questions broke my heart, but our family therapist, Dr. Sarah Kim, helped us navigate the healing process together. "Children are incredibly resilient," Dr. Kim explained during one of our sessions. "Tyler and Mason know they're safe now. The nightmares will fade, but the love and security you're providing will last forever." The legal resolution brought unexpected friendships. Dave Morgan, the private investigator, became a close family friend. Miguel, once released from jail, started a non-profit organization helping wrongfully accused parents navigate the legal system. Even Rosa, my former cellmate, stayed in touch, having turned her life around after her own trial. The financial settlements allowed me to purchase a modest 3-bedroom house with a backyard where the boys could play safely. Tyler claimed the bedroom with the best view for stargazing, while Mason chose the one closest to mine for extra security. One evening, while helping Mason with his homework, he looked up at me with those enormous brown eyes and said, "Aunt Geraldine, why did Mommy want to hurt us?" It was the question I'd been dreading but knew would come eventually. I set down his math worksheet and chose my words carefully. Sometimes grown-ups make very bad choices when they're angry or scared or confused. Your mommy made terrible choices, but that doesn't mean she didn't love you in her own way. It just means she was too sick to make good decisions. But you love us the right way? I love you both more than all the dinosaurs in all the museums combined. Tyler, who'd been listening from the doorway, joined our conversation. "Are we going to live with you forever? If that's what you want, You're my family now. And families stick together. 2 years later, the boys started calling me Mom without any prompting from me. The first time Tyler introduced me to his teacher as my mom, I had to excuse myself to cry happy tears in the hallway. Amanda never requested visits with the boys, which Dr. Kim said was probably for the best. Tyler and Mason needed to heal without the confusion of maintained contact with someone who'd tried to harm them. My new life as a single mother wasn't without challenges. There were soccer practices, school plays, homework struggles, and teenage attitude adjustments as the boys grew. But there were also family game nights, camping trips, graduation ceremonies, and the daily joys of watching two resilient children become confident, happy teenagers. Tyler went on to study paleontology at Arizona State University, frequently calling to share discoveries about new dinosaur species. Mason became a talented artist, winning state competitions and earning a scholarship to art school. At Tyler's high school graduation, he gave a speech about overcoming adversity that brought the entire auditorium to tears. "Some people think surviving trauma makes you broken," he said, looking directly at Mason and me in the audience. "But I learned that surviving trauma with people who love you makes you stronger. My brother and I didn't just survive our childhood. We thrived because we found the family we were meant to have." Amanda remained in prison, never acknowledging the pain she'd caused or expressing any desire for redemption. Occasionally, I received letters from her claiming innocence or demanding money, but I stopped reading them years ago. The boys deserved a future focused on healing, not dwelling on past betrayals. On quiet evenings, when Tyler and Mason are busy with their own lives, I sometimes reflect on how dramatically everything changed because of one phone call from a police detective. I learned that family isn't always about blood relationships. Sometimes the family you choose and fight for becomes stronger than the one you're born into. I also learned that evil can hide behind familiar faces, but good people will always emerge to help when the situation becomes desperate. Dave, Miguel, Rosa, Dr. Kim, and even James Crawford in his final moments of conscience all played crucial roles in saving Tyler and Mason. The experience taught me that justice isn't always swift, but truth has a way of emerging when people refuse to give up fighting for it. Amanda's elaborate plan failed not because she made obvious mistakes, but because she underestimated the power of people who genuinely care about children's welfare. Most importantly, I learned that love, patience, and consistent safety can heal even the deepest childhood trauma. Tyler and Mason are living proof that children can overcome unimaginable betrayal when surrounded by adults committed to their well-being. Today, both boys are successful, happy adults who've built healthy relationships and meaningful careers. They know their early childhood story but don't define themselves by it. Instead, they focus on the family we built together and the bright futures they're creating. The small scar on Mason's hand from his time at the cabin serves as the only physical reminder of those terrible 10 days. But rather than hiding it, he says it reminds him how strong he is and how much he's overcome. That's the lesson I want to leave you with. Sometimes the people closest to you are capable of the deepest betrayal, but truth always emerges if you're brave enough to fight for it. Family isn't just about blood. It's about who stands by you when everything falls apart and who you choose to protect when they need you most. Tyler and Mason taught me that love isn't about obligation or guilt. It's about showing up every day and creating safety in an unsafe world. The family we built from the ashes of betrayal became stronger than anything we'd known before. What would you do if you discovered a family member had been systematically destroying your life? How far would you go to protect children who needed someone to fight for them? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story touched you, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more real-life stories about overcoming impossible odds. Share this story with someone who might need to hear about the power of never giving up when fighting for justice. Thank you for listening to my journey from despair to healing. Remember that even in your darkest moments, there are people who will stand up for truth and children who deserve your protection. Sometimes the family you fight for becomes the greatest blessing of your life.